A Superior Court judge made that decision yesterday after the request was submitted by Fulton County's district attorney last week. She is investigating whether the former president tried to overturn his 2020 election loss in the state. The scope of that probe includes Trump's now infamous phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger just days before the Capitol attack.
I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have. There's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
When the grand jury convenes in early May, we'll have the power to subpoena witnesses who so far have refused to testify. In response to the DA's request last week, Trump claimed his phone call with Raffensperger was, quote, even more perfect, in his words, than his phone call with Ukraine's president, the one that got him impeached in 2019. It's hard to imagine, Jonathan Lemire, a phone call more incriminating than that one we just played. The tape of the sitting president of the United States asking the Secretary of State in Georgia to find the votes to give him that state. We should point out again that the state of Georgia has counted its presidential votes 3 times, including once by hand, all showing Joe Biden winning that state.
Yeah, the investigation is to whether or not then President Trump tried to overturn his defeat in that state. Spoiler, he did. Yeah, so I think we got that. But yes, that phone call obviously is going to be the center of this. He hits the vote total, to a specific vote total that he needs to overturn the result. He's leaning on a fellow Republican there, the Secretary of State, Raffensperger there. A lot of legal experts have suggested that this case actually poses more legal peril to him than some of the others that have been circulating. Those in New York, there's been still indication whether Washington, D.C. might investigate his words leading up to the insurrection. But this is something to watch carefully. The next step will, of course, be subpoenas, whether or not Trump himself or those around him, some of the aides who were in the office that day, including Mark Meadows, maybe they will get them. Will they be forced to testify? But that we'll find out in the spring.
Mika, we know that former President Trump worked around the clock in a number of states to try to get the vote totals flipped, but not as explicitly have we heard it as we did on that phone call to Raffensperger.
That phone call gets worse with time, if it's possible. I mean, it was bad when we first heard it, but hearing him say, you can simply say that you recalculated. Right. I mean, my God. As corrupt as it comes. Let's go across the pond now. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson advanced a measure last week that attempts to bar the influence of critical race theory in schools and businesses across the state. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis goes further, supporting a proposal that would allow parents to sue school districts that teach racism-related materials. Meanwhile, a Florida school district canceled a professor's civil rights history seminar for teachers, citing in part concerns over critical race theory, even though his lecture had nothing to do with the topic. For more on this, let's bring in senior national political reporter for NBC News, Mark Caputo. His latest piece delves into what is exactly going on. Also joining us, the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton. It's great to have you both. Joe?
So, Mark, sort through this for me, okay? Because I grew up in Florida schools, high school, went to law school in Florida. My kids went to public schools in Florida, and every February it was nothing radical about it. Nobody was freaking out. In Pensacola, Florida, one of the most conservative areas in America, Black History Month, our children, thank God, would be taught about the civil rights movement, would be taught about the civil rights movement throughout the year. Nobody batted an eye. What's happening here?
Well, I think what's happening here is our broader racial polarization that we're seeing in partisan politics, in part, is as the Republican legislature, as Republican Governor Ron DeSantis have crusaded more against critical race theory, which they're kind of conflating with anti-racism training, which is more controversial for a lot of people. It's produced various backlashes and kind of grassroots uprisings. And caught in the middle of this are a lot of school districts. School districts are worried. The school administrators are worried. And especially school teachers are worried. Like, look, if I say something that's interpreted or misinterpreted as being critical race theory, which is really a college-level, high-level theory that's taught at the university, I could get in trouble. At least that's kind of the point of the legislation. And what you saw here was a professor named J. Michael Butler, who's at Flagler College, was supposed to give a speech, a lecture, an instruction to school teachers in Osceola County, which is in the Orlando area, about what he called the long civil rights movement, saying, look, civil rights movement wasn't really just limited to the life of Martin Luther King. It started a Reconstruction, and it followed after Martin Luther King's death. But he got an email just the day after the legislation you referenced passed, got an email on Wednesday, saying, yeah, look, we're going to have to cancel this. There are some various concerns. And critical race theory was mentioned. This was done by a school administrator or the school superintendent in Osceola County Schools. He took to Twitter, and we spoke to him. We tried to talk to Osceola Schools about it, and they really didn't want to chat much about it other than say, like, look, this is a problem, and we need to discuss it more.
Yeah, and again, let's just, we're going to put three baskets right here, okay? And the first basket, basic civil rights history, which we've all been taught, and it makes us all better, makes us all smarter, helps us put this country in perspective. Then the second is critical race theory, which they were not training there. The third is, like you said, this anti-racism training. And yes, we've seen some anti-racism training that does more than teach you how not to be racist. It's where, you get the white fragility experts coming in and saying that if you're a white person, you're fragile if you don't understand that you're bigoted and racist or whatever it is. But there are all those. There's also that basket. Those last